So my name's Butler. I work for Lincoln, and I work in color and material design. That entails everything. So it's going to be every A surface, if you will, anything the customer would reasonably see, touch, interact with. So you have exterior body colors, all the other components. Interior, it's every surface. So it can be up to 8,000 definitions, depending on how many permutations per vehicle you have. But it's fun because it's like assigning the vehicle different outfits. So picking a really appropriate and forward-thinking exterior body color lineup, all these beautiful little details. You can see here on our jetpack model, we've chosen a tarnished dark anodized color, and that's like a really dynamic gray. Beautiful travel in the color, and it's not all blacked out. You still have some of that definition for the design of the vehicle, but it supports that sporty appearance. So that's what we're trying to achieve here with this one.
What was the process of this new Nautilus? How long did the design process take?
Oh, it takes years. I think, that's getting compressed. A lot of manufacturers are doing it more quickly, but if you take a look at this is still a pretty large program. There's a lot of different variants to it, a lot of really good collaborative design work put into it. So we start with the thematic sketches, the concepting, and in-color materials.
So like concept art?
Concept art.
And how early is that in the process?
Oh gosh, I remember that all the way back to 2019, I think. Yeah, so that was really early days, like just a thought in your head, and then I think I joined the program in 2020. So that's when it really started kind of accelerating, and it's really conceptual. It's just collaborating with interior and exterior designers, and we enable each other to kind of create the vision we want. We feed off of each other. If you work in silos, it doesn't work.
So what are some of the tools that you guys use?
So I really enjoy using digital visualization. Hard to say, but essentially computer rendering. So I don't create the geometry, but I can take geometry, I can make materials, I can adjust lighting, I can test different situations the vehicle might be in, and then produce a finished image that tests out those materials. But of course you have to have hard samples too. So for me, that's all informed by getting samples from different suppliers, leathers, paint finishes.
Yes.
Exterior body colors are usually developed way far in advance, so that's a lot of strategic thinking for what we think Lincoln, Ford, any sub-brands are going to need. And then when you actually have a program like this, you pull from that. If it's an early enough program, you develop those colors with this program in mind. So it's kind of a lot of making a really well-educated guess, because we never know how trends are going to be. But we do a lot of research for that reason. We think about who this customer is, we have consumer research, we have trend research, all of that goes into informing those decisions. So when we go to a supplier and say, we've got this new mystery vehicle, because a lot of times they don't have all the details yet, what finishes do you have that are in this luxury space that would satisfy this type of wood grain that we're looking for, this type of patterning, this type of technology? And then the suppliers will just give us their best foot forward and say, here's a really awesome paint technology that's going to get you this kind of flip or flop to the color, or here's a way of putting the wood together that gets you kind of a book match look. All these little things, then we just coordinate. If you want to take a look, it's on the top of that mid-IP there, and I know we can't get super close to it, but it's just underneath the air register vent. And again, this is about creating a sportier ambiance. So instead of having the black and kind of mid-tone gray that you would see on the base model, there's an all-black jetpack theme for this one. And we've included a bit of a bolder copper accent for the stitching. It's included on that aluminum, so it's a black aluminum actually with a copper kind of dash dot dash. I call it copper code because it's kind of like Morse code when I looked at it.
Yes.
And then we got the suede in there as well. So some of these sportier cues, but done in, I think, a refined and more Lincoln appropriate way.
This probably is a 2024 model, so 5 years.
It takes a lot of effort and time
to get it to being there. But in your role, you have to be excited about the process of working on the same thing for 5 years.
It takes a special kind of interest, I think. Like, I love automotive. I used to want to draw create the form language of it. To me, it started ruining the fun just a little bit, but this is like right in the middle. It's fashion, it's automotive.
That part.
And there's a lot of feasibility involved with it, so I think it's an asset. You don't have to, but it's an asset if you can think about it in a mechanically engineering minded way where you're like, okay, this material isn't feasible, the radius is too tight, or something like that. So it's fleshing out all those details, creating your series block from your base model to black label, satisfying all these different requirements. It's like the most complicated puzzle you've put together, but it's so satisfying when you feel that you've got it right at the end of the day.
So what was your journey to get you to be a person working on materials for Lincoln?
So I always knew I wanted to be in automotive. Right before I went to school, I had actually signed to go to Penn State for architecture. And I was like, why would I do that if I've always wanted to do automotive? I should at least try it. So I started my first year actually doing like the form language, exterior, interior sketching. That just kind of took the fun out of the hobby for me. So I'm like, okay, well, I'll do product design and I'll explore other avenues. And then by the time I graduated, I'd had several professors, I went to Lawrence Tech, who were in the automotive industry, specifically at Ford. And Lindsay Grant, who has since moved on from Ford and is still doing amazing things, I'm sure. She recommended I try color materials. So she kind of got me a foot in the door. And then ever since I graduated, I've just been at Ford Color Materials. So
it took people to mentor you who had already had experience at Ford,
yes,
to get you in, because normally you wouldn't.
Who at the age of 22 or whatever time, especially in a younger person's life, you're getting out of school, knows exactly where they want to be. You can find it through trial and error, but having somebody that you respect and trust and know does really excellent work, say, hey, I think you should try this, like that's worth a lot. So if you can find somebody who's gonna believe in you like that, like, I'm not here to preach, but I totally co-sign what you said.
And what kind of activities can young people do to figure out if this is something for them or not?
Honestly, it's so corny, but it is true. If you enjoy doing it, then pursue it. Like, it might be hard to find your niche, but there is something out there that's going to kind of fulfill those different things that you're interested in. And just don't give up on looking. Like, I'm stubborn as can be. I think most people would say that about me.
Yeah.
So just be stubborn about what you like and figure out a way that you can find out more about it, keep learning it, keep pursuing those goals. It's harder for some people. Everybody has different access to different things, but you are in control of yourself. So be stubborn for yourself, advocate for yourself. And I think that's the most important trait to have in a person.
So do you use things like Unity or Unreal Engine in design at all?
Yeah, design as a whole, we use pretty much everything above, like all of the above. I personally don't really need to for the types of renderings and presentations I have to give. But when we're talking about like digital experience, which I know it's not turned on in this car, that's a perfect opportunity to start rendering these different animations. Or if you're just doing an animation of the vehicle as a whole, to kind of rotate the design, see it driving down the road. Yeah, I mean, all of these skills are super applicable. Getting really comfortable in a digital space to kind of quickly iterate and fail and then try something different, and then maybe that doesn't work, but eventually that gets you there super quick because you're not working with hard materials. Now, what I will say is I don't think clay is going away, because there's something about seeing a vehicle in the flesh, in person, looking at how these highlights track. That is a huge amount of fine-tuning. I mean, these are artisan sculptors that know how the form works. They understand how light is going to reflect off the surface. They understand the perspective of how it's going to warp and change. So digital is great, but it's important to be able to see it in person and physically touch it and understand how it's working too.
So in conclusion, what advice and what skills do you think a young person, middle school, high school, that's thinking about design, what skills and what kind of resources would you suggest they pursue?
That's a good question, because design is much broader than just drawing. I really don't do a lot of hand sketching, so if it is related to design, just be curious about it, learn about it. If you just feel to me, it's like, I'm curious about engines and how they work. I can't explain it, not my career field, but if you have that type of curiosity where you just want to go and look it up or read about it or draw something or use Photoshop for something, keep following that. Do what you can to learn as much as you can, and acknowledge that whatever type of creativity that you have, give it its space. It's important. There is a career field that you will be able to find for it, and it's for you. It's your career, it's your life. You should enjoy it, and give yourself the permission to follow that.
Thank you so much, Liam.